Hey everybody, welcome to A-Aron's Adventures. Today we're going to be jigging up some stripers. Make sure to also stay tuned for the blooper reel. Today I'm with my dad out on the Overton arm of Lake Mead and we're going to jig up some striped bass, or stripers as we like to call them. It's springtime here and you can see the weather conditions are a little windy, making things kind of difficult, but we're going to make it work. We're fishing in about 20-30 feet of water and targeting an area just off of a point coming out from a cove. As you can see here, the water's stained and a little muddy, so we're going to be using some silver metal jigs that are 3/4 ounce. Make sure to stay tuned. You won't believe the amount of fish we catch in just a few short hours. Here you can see I reel up and switch to the other side of the boat. It seems like there wouldn't be much of a difference in fishing from one side of the boat to the other, but actually a 10-foot difference in lure placement can make a big difference, especially when fishing in muddy water like this.
There we go. My dad's got one. I'm gonna have to get it for him.
Here you can see my dad hooks up with the first fish of the day, and I help him land and unhook the fish. This is so he can keep the boat in the same spot and keep us on top of the fish, which can be very difficult in wind like this. Now, keeping the boat in the same location after catching a fish is very important, especially when you're fishing for stripers, since they travel in schools, and that wind can drift you off of that school of fish much faster than you'd think.
There we go. My turn. Airplane him.
Here I've got a pretty good striper that I airplane into the boat. This can be a quick and easy way to land the fish, but you have to make sure the fish is hooked really well, otherwise the hook can pull out. Now typically when I do this, I grab the leader first, then I grab the fish by the lip. This helps you avoid getting stabbed by the fish's spines or the hook, which can hurt like a mother. Also, you need to make sure that your line is strong enough when you do this, and you want to be careful that you don't cut your hand when you grab the line.
Try to get you in control more, huh?
One with him.
Oh, no, I didn't.
We got a 24. We're still losing ground.
Net and unhook. This fish is hooked deep in the cartilage, and you can see that I struggle to unhook the fish with my bare hands, so I have to resort to using a pair of needle nose pliers to get the hook out. Needle nose pliers are essential when it comes to fishing. They're invaluable for unhooking fish, and most also have line cutters on them as well, which can come in very handy.
We'll see how thick he is once I grab him.
This fish is a little skinny, so we decide to throw it back. But the fish flips out of my hand and begins flopping around in the bottom of the boat. I use my foot to gently pin the fish and stop it from flopping around so I can grab it by the lip and toss it back. This technique can work well when trying to get a hold of a fish that won't stop flopping around, especially when dealing with stripers that have spines that can poke you or sharp gill plates that can cut you. Now obviously you don't want to stomp the fish to death or anything. You just use enough pressure to keep the fish from flopping around, and be especially gentle if you're planning on releasing that fish. Here you can see a slight difference or change in the water color. This is where we've been catching all our fish today. When trying to locate fish, this is one thing you should definitely look for. Fish will usually congregate around areas like this. I've got a decent striper on here, and if you notice, once I get the fish close to the boat, I get it going one way, then I pull the opposite direction on the fish right before I lift it out of the water. This helps to make sure that the hook doesn't come out when I airplane the fish into the boat.
That's good.
My dad has a smaller fish on here that he airplanes up to me to unhook, and I believe this one was lucky enough to get thrown back so it could get bigger for next time. This is a smaller striper that I airplane in and release as well. My dad has a pretty big striper here that I net and add to the live well. This fish is approximately 3.5 to 4 pounds. Now that's not really that big considering that stripers in this lake can get up to almost 50 pounds, but stripers over 10 pounds are few and far between and are usually caught using different methods like trolling with much bigger lures. My dad catches a smaller fish here that I struggle to unhook before I decide to turn off the camera, and then I believe I release that one to get bigger for next time. Here, I've got on a decent striper where my dad hooks up with another to make it a double. Unfortunately, his gets off, but I managed to successfully land mine and add it to our live well. My dad has on an average striper here that he airplanes up to me to unhook. After the fish is unhooked, it manages to flip out of my hand into the bottom of the boat, and I have to use my foot again to pin the fish before I can get a hold of it and throw it into the live well. Here's another decent striper from my dad that I net and add to the live well. Yet another good striper for my dad that I add to the live well. Here I've got an average keeper fish, and before I can even get it unhooked, my dad has another. Two more fish in the live well in 1 minute. My dad has on a fish here, and I continue jigging as I make my way to the front of the boat to assist him, but before he can get his in, I manage to hook one too, making it another double.
Oh, I got one. No, Green Keeper, they're bringing up in here. Oh, this one's. Oh, this might be a pretty good one right here. He's tough. So sore. Yeah, my thumb is bleeding right now.
At this point, my thumb has started bleeding from handling so many fish. Now, stripers don't have very sharp teeth. They're actually more like coarse sandpaper, but after unhooking 20 plus fish, it can begin to wear through your skin. This clip is almost identical to the last. My dad has on a fish, then I hook up immediately after to make it a double.
Oh, there we go. I got one too. Oh, this is a good one. Ooh. Yep. Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Two more fish in the live well in under a minute for the third time in a row. Here I've got on a pretty big striper that's pulling some drag. But when I get the fish near the surface and try to airplane it onto the boat, the hook comes out and the fish gets away. This is one drawback to the airplane technique. If I had just netted the fish instead of trying to airplane it, I would have landed it. On this attempt, I've got on another big fish, and I managed to successfully airplane this one onto the boat.
Oh yeah, look at this one, Dad. Ow. Got me. Oh, there we're at. Ooh, this one looks skinny. I think I'm gonna have to throw him back. Yeah, this one needs to eat up.
This fish is extremely skinny and needs to be thrown back. It's skinny in the stomach, and much more importantly, it's really thin across the back, which means there isn't much meat on it for proper fillets. Here comes another double. As my dad fights this one in, I hook up with another one as well.
There we go. I got one too.
Here, my dad has an average fish, but it's foul hooked, so it's pulling really hard. When a fish is foul hooked, especially in the side, it pulls a lot harder than if it were hooked in the mouth. This is because when a fish is hooked in the mouth, you have more control of the fish and you're pulling it in head first.
See what you got
When the fish is hooked in the side, you lose some of that control and you're pulling the fish in sideways, which means it has more resistance in the water.
Could be another catfish. You can swivel, I haven't seen it yet. Oh, you got him snagged, yeah. Yeah, I'll bring it in here. There we go.
And here's one more average striper. This is a nice little largemouth bass I caught while throwing a small tube bait into the weeds near the shore, and it's the last fish of the day before we decide to call it quits.
I got something good on. Came off.
Hey, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram at MountainManA-Aron.